Hi, Tracy. Hi, Tracy.
You want me to turn it over to you or to
Yeah, that's fine. So we need to. Hey, Chris,
Hey.
how's life?
Um, it's okay. Kind of busy.
Can't complain about that.
You? How's life for you?
Same, kind of busy.
That's good.
So, for some reason, my volume keeps being turned off. It's weird.
Oh, okay.
I am going to go find our doc and share the doc.
Hey, Tracy. Hey,
Hi.
Chris.
we have not been keeping notes. Are we still keeping notes in the same document that I had originally started?
No, I'm sorry about that. Let me reach out.
Is it, but we just haven't been keeping notes that this is what we've been working from, right?
Yes.
April.
Hey there, Ed.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Ed.
How you doing?
Good. Wait, that's not the right one. Wrong meeting.
Just a second here.
Hmm. Okay, we may as well get started. Don't you
Okay.
think? Anybody who comes in late can catch up. I was not at the last call. We did go over some website design. You want to talk about that, Kate?
So one of the things, and I'm trying to bring it up now, Ed, it sort of originated with what you were talking about with the chart, basically, the tables. And Chris designed one table, and we went back and were talking about it, and she sent out, well, basically how to do the circles. You know, whether it should be when we take a list, when we look at the table and we list it, and I need to bring up that table, unless, I don't know, Chris, if you can bring it up faster.
I think I shared a link on Slack. So, oh,
I'm
yeah,
able to do that.
let me try.
And so we then started to talk about, we looked at, because it was first by percentage. So if we were looking at the tools, how would we be able to define, like it meets 95% of the requirements, et cetera. So we talked, and we basically talked about having circles, which sort of led to what you had in the original design. So let me just try to bring this up.
I have.
Are you talking about this here? Let me see if, let me share my screen.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Are you talking about this?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, super. And is this fairly easy for people to work with in Markdown?
I think we have to resort to using HTML code inside Markdown for this because, like, for some of the widths, we have to customize it.
Well, my suggestion would be is let's get the content down. And then we could come back through once the content is done and pretty it up. And the only reason why I say that is I want to make sure that people are comfortable with creating, making it easy for people to create the content. So can you show me an example of the markdown that we would have to use to make those? It's very pretty, and I think it makes sense. But if it makes it hard for people to write, I think it will be it will stop people from contributing.
Okay. I think you have to pull the branch first, or you can go back to GitHub for this. So if you go to do any files, the last tab files changed. So if you go to not this one, but say this one. It's not super difficult, but there's some like gotchas we have to watch out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because like, it's easier this way than to use Markdown, because Markdown is even more messy.
Okay, so with Markdown, all we're doing is just take a look at what we're up to here. Let me open up the folder. The website. It's probably under. Okay. So in the right now, the way we have it's pretty just straightforward, and there's no tabling at all. So this is it. It's a bullet point. How hard would it be for us to go after the fact, after we built this and everybody's comfortable with the content, and then add some of this back in? Because the tables would be associated to trying to really understand how that would look. So you have this type of information where we have bullet points, and we're looking to change it to, dang. Okay, go back to Slack. That's going to be easier.
I just would suggest sandbox as well.
Here. So this would be listed as the tools. So, and this would be in the description. And if I go back up to the files.
And then if I could ask a question after.
So these are each of the table rows. So that is the description, correct?
Yes.
These are the table data nested in each. So if everybody's comfortable with this format, I'm okay with it. I think that we will see people struggling. I know because I work with tables a lot in Markdown. I think we'll see people struggling with the tables, and we might have to do some cleanup on them. But if everybody's okay with doing that kind of cleanup, I think I'm just afraid people will get frustrated not being able to see where they should update this. But if everybody feels comfortable with doing it, I'm not one to stop it. I'm just going to throw it out there that it could make it more difficult for people to understand where they're supposed to update the information.
So one of two things, if you don't mind, could you go, Tracy, back to Chris's table?
Okay, let me see if I can get both of them up here so I don't have to lose this.
And the reason being is
This is Chris's table right here. So this is what we'll be writing.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
could I see the visual format? the visual display, yeah.
I'm trying to get there. I have to go back to Slack.
No problem, sorry. And I'll just, so to Ed, just because I, I do want Ed to see, because of the last couple, when we, is this first, if I could just, this I believe was in line with what you were talking about, right, Ed?
Yeah, something similar.
Yeah.
I think I had the table laid out, or suggested the table layout be laid out slightly differently, but in general, yeah, the concept of taking the activities from I think is it the SSDF that we were looking at, and then mapping them to each of the tools we were looking at, and I think the goal was to enable DevOps folks to make decisions on which tools to bring in that would solve some of the challenges in their spaces.
Yeah,
And-
I'm not having any complaint about the way
Oh.
this looks, the way this looks. I think that we should focus though on getting the content, and then we can pretty it up so that we can get more people contributing. That's my only suggestion. From working with a lot of open source communities, the simpler it is, the more likely we're going to get contributors.
The only, I think I was, so the only reason why I was going down the one path is because Ed hadn't been on for a couple times. And so I
Yep.
just wanted him to see that.
Thank you.
But from the other point of view, if we're, and maybe this is, you know, not realistic and not easy, in which I wouldn't want to do that, but were we not going to review the tools as we're going through it, and make these working calls? And with that being said, I wonder if in the background, as we're saying, yeah, this tool, OWASP, blah, 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 does this, like I know because I've worked with it, and so yes, for this tool, and yes, for the next tool. Like, weren't these gonna, like, once we got through some of the, some small items, were we not looking to make these like working calls? And if so, could we all do it at the same time? And maybe that's not realistic.
We didn't, I've already broken it up. So every single one of these are a different file. So we don't have to do it all at the same time. And the way we need to create the pull requests, we go over here with issues. So we just have compliance for post-deployment build and code deploy. What we really need to do is create a pull request for each of the documents. And each of the documents are, so here's code and pre-build. This is under secure software development framework. Here's one that's for protect the organization, protect the software, protect well-secured software, respond to vulnerability. So each one of these should be a pull request.
Okay.
Underneath each one of these. Because this, if you look to see how I've built it out, they're all separate files. So nobody, if somebody goes and assigns himself a pull request to work on build and deploy, the PO part of it, it's ready to go. It's, you know, the definition is there. We just need to start listing the tools. So these are all broken up into nice little chunks. So what I'm suggesting is that we just get the information out there.
Okay.
And then once we are all comfortable with how what it says, the content, then we go back through and do some design work. Now, if that feels like it's too much work, that we should just go ahead and put everything in tables and hope that people don't struggle with them, I'm okay with that. But the way we've designed this is a little bit different from this. Right?
Okay.
It's just this is just in a very beautiful table format. I'm not sure how we determine the readiness. Is that something that we are going to agree on?
We started to talk about it on the last call, just the same thing that you're talking about, Tracy. And I would overall, some of the things that we spoke about would be certain metrics. Let's say you have a tool and it meets 5 out of the 10 requirements. You know, is that a green or yellow? And just defining that as we go forward. What
Okay.
I've seen, go ahead, sorry.
So what I believe that we should work on then is we should make sure we get these pull requests set up so that people understand which document they're working on.
Okay.
We can put in each document, if we want to go with this table format, I keep going over there, I don't know why. We should go to each document. If I look here, we should convert what we already have. So this page could all be converted into the table format. And we should take that table format, a shell table format, and put it in each one of these. So this should have one, this should have one, so that people can work within it. Or we don't worry about the tabling at the moment, and we just get the data in here. And then we'll go a second pass around. We'll take each one and build the table formats.
Okay.
Cutting and pasting the information into it. Like I say, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just trying to point out that if we do make it hard,
Complicated, people won't do it. Yeah.
people won't write. And I'd like it just to be more free form so that we could get the data in here, and then we can go through and pretty it up in any way we see fit. And if that table, and we could go through and do the readiness, because if what we're going to need to do, and what I'd like to have these conversations being focused on at the moment, would be to take, for example, this one. Well, let me go to here. Whoops, let me go to here. We have done some work in well-secured software. We should be looking at these right now and seeing if these are correct.
Okay.
That's the discussion we should be having. Because I just threw some of the stuff in here and we haven't worked on it at all. And maybe I should take it back or assign myself this and go through it myself to see if I believe these are all fit into acquiring and maintaining well-secured software. Because there's different categories of the software. So for example, when I was working on this, I have something on SBOM generation and attestation. I have something on binary repositories. So we would have to create a table that helped do that as well, which the table that we have in front of us may work. That's fine, but it may have a sub table underneath that because I have like P41, and then we have the tools, but I have the tools in different categories as well, because it's not that tidy, right? The data doesn't end up being quite that easy to map. If I go back to here. So we have a task. I would have to have, this table would have to support categories within this task, I believe.
I think rightly or wrongly, where my mind goes is, first of all, it's a worthy cause. Like this, if we get it right, this will be very beneficial, potentially shaping multiple companies' approach to SSDF. But I don't think this working group has the expertise to know all about all the tools that are in here. So then where I go is, given your position within the Linux Foundation, let's say, you have leverage or a name behind you to go and request input from folks that are intimately involved in these tools. So like the maintainer of these tools. So
100%.
So then where I go is, okay, if we were to go there, could we structure the questions in such a way, to your point, Tracy, like that it'd be a kind of yes, no, does your tool support this requirement, yes or no? And if yes, show us how, or give us a link to where this is documented. And
Right.
have those folks, have that army of people that want their tools displayed on our report. Give us that input. But
So one way we can achieve that is if we get it wrong, right? We go ahead and we get as much information populated into these these areas that are already there. We get the information in there, and then we reach out, and we keep it a simple format so it's easy for someone to go in and change where their tool goes. And we let them know that we have published this, and we would like them to review where their tool sets. The problem becomes, and this is another issue that we'll have to watch, and I learned this from when I did the Continuous Delivery Foundation's landscape, is companies want their tools not to be in their primary service area, but they want them to be everywhere. So we'll end up seeing, you know, a SBOM tool being added to a lot of different places. So we have to actually go back and push back. But if we just get the data in there, if we have a document that we can share out, then we can say, look, we've added, you know, there's open source tools out here. I can reach out to the folks at OpenSSF. We can have Roxanne from the CDF push this out. We can have Sally from the OpenSSF push it out and say, we have added open source tools to this CI/CD cybersecurity document. Would you review it and make sure your tooling is in the accurate place? Because I think we have more knowledge than we realize within the community. And if we get some of it wrong, it's okay, because just like Wikipedia, it can be fixed. But my concern is that we're dragging our feet and just getting the data in there. And I just feel like we just need to get the data out there. I'm going to have more time in May to work on this, but the way we have it structured, maybe next week I'll sit down and, you know, we need to create the pull requests or the issues so that people can understand that they're working on a single section, and start getting the data in there. And then we'll publish it, let people move their stuff around. And once we feel like it's stabilized, I think we should pretty it up.
Okay, I'm good with that. Everybody, Ed, Chris, Henry.
I'd probably do it differently, but you guys decide. Like, you know, publishing information that's wrong or half baked, you know, that starts us off on the wrong foot.
It was the fastest way for us to get the landscape built.
Yeah.
Because it was if people then went through and looked at it and said that, no, I'd rather not be listed in deployment tools. I want to be listed in under container builds. Right. So it allowed the teams to correct it.
So the level of review would be that we would have somebody put together a page to start, and then in this meeting, we'd take one pass at what we think is correct. And then once we think the page is correct, it could be, well, we'd have to probably have at least 90% correct version of each page, right? And then we'd advertise that it exists.
Yeah, exactly. And I would advertise it within the open source communities that are out there. We could contact somebody, you know, from JFrog, Sonatype, let them find it, you know, let them tell us if we got it wrong. Because some of this we know, binary repositories, we know what those are. These are all correct. I already know, I can already tell you on this top one, most of these are correct. But that doesn't mean that there may be more that we haven't added in there. And I just think that each week we should be taking a section and going through it and doing our best to review everybody's work that they've done on these each individual issues, and go from there. And once we feel like it's pretty darn close, we publish it. It's not a bad thing to say, hey folks, we've given it a stab at it. Can you contribute? It's kind of how open source works.
Yeah.
A lot of code gets delivered that may not ever go get pushed out, and then later you go, oh, we can use that now, right?
Yeah. So
I think that it will be a while, to be honest, before we can get some of these open source projects to take a look at this and see if it's correct. They'll only do that after it becomes popular. And if somebody's using this and says, you know what, I really don't think that SonarQube is really should be in this category, they can change it. They can go in and create a issue, or they can create a pull request to change it. And that's why I think it's important to make it easy and open.
Do you see the end products being like the list of requirements that SSDS have, like that listed in a row per requirement, and the tool, or whoever puts in the data, the tool says yes or no for that particular requirement? Or is it more kind of general, in general terms, this is a rough category of tooling that may support?
I think we have to be general, but I do believe that we all have more expertise than we give ourselves credit for. And once we get these, because some of these are completely empty. If we go into build and deploy, we actually had some good work done, and I tried to save most of it. So I think this is where the majority of, here's a bunch of stuff from build and deploy that I tried to clean up and put, in specific areas. But these are not assigned to tasks yet, so this still has some work to do. But we're not focusing on the content, and I just feel like right now we need to make a shift and start focusing on content, and not worry about the look and feel, and not be too worried about perfection, because the owners of these tools, if they don't feel like that they're in the right place and this becomes popular, it will be, they'll change it, or they'll add themselves. So for example, we have in toto is here, and in toto is also over here.
And also, I think I saw them in Respond.
It might be because they do a lot of, there's a lot of different features that tool offers. And they should they rightly belong probably in multiple places. And that's why I was saying that, sometimes we get tools that will get populated in more than one place, and maybe they belong there, maybe they don't. But we instead of I think these conversations, these every 2-week conversations, what we really should be doing is looking at what people have contributed and working through it. Do we believe it's correct? Let's chat about it. Let's all just do a little work on it. Like, we can take a look at in toto, and we say, does it really support implementing a tool chain? What is this tool really doing, and does it really belong in that spot? That's how I think these discussions should be going. And if we need to update it, we just update it right then and there and say, no, we're going to move this out. But we can't do any of that because we haven't really started working on the content. The only content that is out there is the content that I put out there in January, and the content that I can't remember who did this hard work on build and deploy. No, it was under build and deploy. So this is the only other content that's out there, is this. So I say, let's get the issues created. We have about 30 people who have signed up for this. Once the issues are created, I think we should create an email that says, here's where we need help. And we should break out what the issues what the issues are, and ask people to assign themselves a section. Because it doesn't take that long to work the section and do your best at trying to identify the tools that go in there. And then we can just start reviewing it.
Yeah.
As part of that email, maybe, or request for input, maybe we could give them an example or 2 or 3 of what we do want. So like, whether we pick one tool and document it the way you see it being documented, or one SSDF requirement, and flesh it out so people can visualize what the end state looks like here.
Well, why don't we start with this page then?
Yep, we can do that. So
Yeah.
here's an
This is-
example of what we look for.
Yeah, this page is the farthest. If we want to put it into a table, I would ask that the table support we need to have another nested row column, because with this, there is definitely different categories of tools. But right now, I don't think we should do anything about tables. I think we should just focus on the content and get the content done. This reads fine. We don't have as much data in terms of giving it a score or giving it a little circle, but we can get there. We'll get there. We just need to get the content down. And then the fun of prettying up is, can be done once we know that all the content is in here.
Yep.
Because we need to make progress on the content, and we're just not doing it. So I think asking people to assign themselves a section, it would be a good way to do it.
So how big should the issues be?
How big should the issues be?
Yeah, so is protect
I'll
the
show you again. Yeah. So if you
Protect-
look at this, how this is structured,
Mhm.
there's three high level chapters. Within that, we're only working on the secure software development framework. So within that, this is a file, this is a file, this is a file, and this is a file. So PO, PS, PW, and RV are all separate markdown files. And each one of those should be an issue. So
Yeah, that
add
makes sense.
tools for protect the organization, add tools for protect the software. And if you go into it, I tried to kind of give a sample of how to get started. Here's what this says. And here's what I have in here. Now, what I haven't done is gone through the entire, if I go back over here, I haven't gone through the entire section under, let's just say, PO, starting up here, prepare the organization. I've gone through a few of these for prepare the organization and said, you know what, I really do think that this probably should be part of the CI/CD pipeline. Or I'm like, no, that we couldn't do in the CI/CD pipeline. Communicate requirements to all third parties who will provide commercial software components to the organization. Don't think that, and then I would read through. And from that is how I started building this data. I go back to,
And
where's our, here's the PO. The only one apparently I saw was PO-3, right? So if I go back to PO1 and 2, I did PO, I got down to PO3, implement supporting tool chains. So I started building this out for implementing supporting tool chains. So this all is about these from PO, this whole section should probably be addressed in this section of the document. And I just did PO.3.
Tracy, I try to do the responsive vulnerabilities, and I don't know if it looks right. Could you just click on it real quick? Does that look right to you or no? Would you want me to do it differently?
Identify how to achieve organization.
That came from the map. That came from direct.
Releases and respond appropriately to address those by and prevent similar ones from occurring in the future. I think that those potentially could work in that, but this is again the kind of conversation we should be having. We should be saying, okay, we've gotten through this. Let's go through here. Is there some other place where this kind of scanning really should be done? because this is preventing vulnerabilities instead of responding to vulnerabilities. So this might need to be going up to protecting the software. There may be
Okay.
something in PS that the scanning should be in. Dynamic. So I don't know if it identify and respond to how to achieve residual in their software releases and respond to problems. So I think that I think all of this is about fixing how to fix vulnerabilities. So we should have tools like OSV Dev in here. We should have tools like MITRE ATT&CK, or any of the tooling that we can go and look to see how to mitigate, tools on mitigation. And there's some out there that are becoming more and more
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah.
So some of these may be in protect the software.
Yeah.
So
So should we have an arrow that, not an arrow, but should we list, go here, or it, look to this tool, or no? I mean, look to this, yeah, go to PS.
if
Well,
it's
I know,
appropriate.
I would think we would just fill out, like, some of this can be copied over to protect the software, right? Some of these tools. But I think what Tracy's saying is like, respond to vulnerabilities is more after software is released. So like you're not going to do static application security testing at that point.
That's true.
There are some things so I had a conversation. There are some things that some of these tools can do to help after a known vulnerability is released. When you already have software running, some of these tools keep a registry of what software has what packages. So those would still belong in this list, right? Because they help you go backwards from a vulnerability to what software has it.
So quick question. So with RV1, identify and confirm vulnerabilities on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, Ortelius should be on this list because that's all Ortelius does is looks for continuously scans for new vulnerabilities after it's been deployed.
Okay.
But that being said, responding to vulnerabilities isn't always just after deployment. That's why I was saying there's different categories of these. So responding to a new vulnerability could be scanning to make sure it's not coming from the beginning of
From
the
source.
right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that is a response to a vulnerability because you want to make sure now that you're checking for it.
That is true.
That's
So
why there's different categories of within each of these sections, like the RV section, RV1. You may have identify and confirm vulnerabilities on an ongoing basis. You have to do that at every dev test, and maybe we should have said, okay, at the build state, this is what you should be doing. At the test state, this is what you should be doing. At the release state, this is what you should be doing.
oh, but wait a minute. We're under code and pre-build.
Yeah, we're under code and pre-build, exactly. So that kind of makes sense, under code and pre-build, right? What she's got in here.
So doesn't it seem like we're going to have like a lot of cookie cutters? I mean, sort of to Anne-Marie's point, the idea like we copy and paste.
Yeah, that's why right now I think that you mean copying pasting this kind of
Just like with the responding to vulnerabilities on a constant basis, it under code and isn't that always going to under code and pre-build? Isn't it always it almost seems like we're going to be able to take one task and be able to duplicate it throughout the different table of contents throughout.
Possibly, we might be able to. I don't know. I haven't played with it enough to know if this is going to be. I have duplicated these though, all the way through.
Yeah.
Right? These are all duplicated. So this is
I
all
bet there is a
duplicated
lot
all the
of
way through.
repetitive. Yeah, I think you have to repeat content. Um, or repeat tool lists in many places. Yeah, I think it's going to be inevitable.
Yeah, I think so too.
And that's probably going to be, I would, I mean, that's going to be good. I mean, not only for building this out, but also in tooling at the end of the day, right? Because the more that we can,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. So
okay,
let's just see if we can't get some, let's get the pull request written, structured out here based on these, these nestings that we have. Because we have plenty then. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. We should
okay,
have 16 pull requests out there to see if we can't get some contribution to it. And I'll be happy to send out the email to say, okay, here's the pull request. These are fairly easy full-time, pull requests. They are covering different sections, and I'll try to explain, as Ed has pointed out, a kind of a template. And I think that we can use, the responder vulnerabilities under code and pre-build. I think you did a great job, Kate. And maybe that's the one we take on next week, is to read through it and feel like it, and make sure we feel it's as correct as possible. Let's just try in the next month to just
okay,
get this section done: code and pre-build, the PO, the PS, the PW, and the RV section done.
yeah,
That's a good start.
See where we go. Yeah. So I'll create 4 pull requests. Or Kate, if you want to go in and create the 4 pull requests for these 4,
Do you mean
you can
issues?
go ahead and create them all.
Do you mean issues or pull requests?
I'm sorry, issues. I don't know why I keep saying pull requests. We should have issues for every single one of these. And then people can go out and assign themselves and take it on.
okay. So I'm going to create 16 issues.
It would be 12. There should be 4 in each of these. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Could we do one right before we ask folks to help them visualize it? So like,
So Ed, we will wait for you to say if we have one right or not.
I'm not well, I'm not sure.
What do you mean by right?
I mean, if we are going to go and ask people to do work, if you were to ask me to do work now, I'm not crystal on what the end result would look like. So I think what I'm suggesting is that we take one and do it ourselves to the degree we're happy with it, and then use that as the kind of gold star or the North Star for other folks. So if it's one tool, I'm not sure, or if it's one SSDF practice, I'm not sure. And maybe that's part of my confusion.
Would it be okay if we then spent the next 2 weeks for each of us to look at this page, produce well-secured software, the PW under code and pre-build, and if we feel like we have it right, then we can say, here's an example of what your section should look like.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe give me 5 minutes now, maybe, and help me understand, or walk, help me figure out what I'm missing. So for PW, I go to the SSDF, and there's multiple sections. Hold on, let me find it here.
So you go to PW. I'm sharing it.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So
here's the beginning of PW.
yes, so there's like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So when you think about the end product for the publication that we're going to do, is it kind of like we're going to have one general section for PW, and then kind of the tools that are mostly associated with this general area, or is it there's
3. We're gonna
one?
look at PW. You're gonna go through it and you're gonna comb through and say, let's say you've assigned yourself. Let's go back to here. You've assigned yourself protect the organization. So we're going to create a pull request that's for this document under code and pre-build, secure software development framework, protect the organization. So you would assign yourself that pull request, and the job would be to go through under PO, to read through it, and to your best ability, decide if any of these particular tasks should be listed as part of the code and pre-build step of the pipeline. So number 1, identify and document all security requirements for the organization's software development infrastructure and process, and maintain the requirements over time. Here's some examples. Define policies for securing software development process throughout the SDLC. When I read that, I believe I put in toto would be the closest that we could use to do that. Backstage may have been. We could have maybe added backstage to that, because backstage allows you to create templates. But for the most part, it's sort of setting up the process. So maybe we have to have a higher level that says, prepare the organization, and we'll find that out as we do this. So I don't think I listed anything for PO1. Let's see what I did when I played with this. No, I didn't. I just did PO3.
But it sounds
So-
like this. So what I heard there was an ask to say, go through PO1, PO 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, all the tasks in the
all the
PO
PO
practice,
tasks, right?
and make a
But-
decision on whether it's part of the code and
Does it fit in code and pre-build in the DevOps pipeline? Now another person might take on, where's my Git repo? Why do I lose it?
And is it the intention then to go through those again and see if they're part of the other parts of
Yes,
the?
exactly. That's because we decided we wanted to break them up so people weren't working on the same things. So somebody might go to build and deploy, and they might go, okay, I'm going to take on protect the organization for build and deploy. And I'm going to read through this, and I'm going to look for any of these issues that would be solved in the pipeline by a tool during the build and deploy process. Like provide role-based training for all personnel, not in that, it's not part of it. Obtain upper management or authorizing official commitment to secure development, and convey that the commitment to all the development related roles and responsibilities. You can read through these examples and you're pretty good, like, yeah, that can't be done at all. Implement supporting tool chains. Oh, okay, we got some work now. And this is specify which tools or tool types must be used. Backstage probably should be added to that. That would be a perfect thing. Follow recommended security practice to deploy, operate, and maintain tools and tool chains. Oh, PO3 would be follow the CI/CD cybersecurity guidelines. We could reference ourselves. PO3.3 configure tools to generate artifacts of their support of secure software development practices as defined by the organization. Use existing tools, workflow tracking, issue tracking, value stream mapping to create an audit trail of the secure development related actions that are performed for continuous improvement purposes. So PO3.3 has some CI/CD work that should be focused on. And just go through all the POs. And this is how I did it. So they're not that bad. We've almost gone through, we've got P4 and P5 to do. So it could take, an hour or so to get the first pass done. And then we start working on it as a group, each of these pages, to try to refine them and make sure they're as accurate as we possibly can make them before we ask teams to take a look at it and check our work. Like, I don't even know, configure each development endpoint based on approved hardening guidelines. Enable FIPS compliant encryption of all sensitive data at a rest and in transit. Anne-Marie, do you have anything idea what that even means?
Yeah, I think okay, the second part is easier. Encrypt data at rest and in transit.
Yeah, but it's not something we would be doing in the CI/CD pipeline.
When I think of, I'm sorry.
What okay, so when we try to meet this requirement, that's like a architecture review. So yeah, it's not really something that the pipeline is doing, I don't think.
Right. Continuously monitor security posture of all development endpoints, including monitoring, auditing the abuse of all privileged access. That's something we would do.
That would be like post deploy and not in the pipeline, yeah.
It seems right, like some of these are not application based, yeah.
A lot of these, the secure software development framework isn't just about the CI/CD pipeline. So that's why it's difficult to understand what we're supposed to be doing as DevOps engineers to comply with it. And that's
That's
the
actually
task.
something I can actually tackle pretty easily. That point alone, I mean, because endpoints and DisASTIG, I mean, they have tools like BigFix that go through and can automate all those. But that's from
So
a
that might be something that when somebody who takes on the next oh, that's not it. We go back over here, post deploy. Maybe those are some things that should be being done at the operations level, and we would consider that something that it would be a post deployment step.
Right.
So Ed, was that helpful?
I think what I got out of it was there's an ask in there. The ask, humor me as I try and throw it back to you. For if we were to start off with the prepare the organization, the ask of whoever we're going to ask is to go through the PO 1.1, 1.2 down to PO 4, whatever it is, 5,
Yeah.
5.2, and for each of them, ask or answer the question, does this belong in code and pre-build? Yes, no. So that's the first kind of deliverable. The second one then it sounds like is for each of the examples that are in the notational implementation example, does this belong in DevOps or not? Yes, no. And at that point then you have the task, the practice, the task, and the notional examples that are now relevant to what we're trying to do. And for each of them, select a tool that would be appropriate in that space. Am I hearing it right? Or
You are. And the way I did it in the beginning, when I'd worked on prepare this one, I went to here, I started in PW, and I did for code and pre-build. I went through to look to see if the ones I believe should be in code and pre-build, I literally cut and paste it and added it to my markdown and stuck it there. Then I went to the next one, stuck it there. And then after I finished and I said, okay, I think I got them all. These are probably the two primary ones. Then I sat down and I was like, okay, now what tool should I put in those? So I first went through the secure software development framework and I listed every single task that I thought needed to be in code and pre-build from that particular section. I didn't worry about the tools. I just worried about which ones. And then I read them and said, okay, now I'm going to read through these and see which ones that should probably go, you know, which tools would fit this requirement.
Mhm.
So even if we didn't have any tools listed and we just were able to pull out of this document these particular tasks that impact one of those three categories, code and pre-build, build and deploy, and post deploy, and said these are the tasks that we want to focus on. Now let's sit down. We'll get them added. Now let's take the second pass and start working on the open source tools that we have to research to put in them.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes more sense to me now. And if you want, and if it'll help, I can draft up that methodology, let's call it, so we can hand it to folks.
That would be great if you could do
Okay.
that to see, to say, this is the first pass of what we want. And maybe that's what we do in the first pass. We just ask for them to identify the tasks for each of those three categories in all of these task sections.
Yeah.
And not worry about adding any of the open source tools. Let's just get the task identified.
so
That's cool.
let me ask with that, then do we just do 12 issues and just identifying tasks and see who will take that on?
Yeah.
Okay.
But let Ed do a little bit of a kind of a
Oh, for
write-up
sure.
on the process, and then I'll include that in the email.
Okay.
But if you go ahead and get those 12 issues opened, and
Okay.
the issue will just be identify the task.
Right.
Yep. If somebody gets ambitious and puts tools in there, that's fine. But the goal is to get the task first. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I'll spend an hour or two at it. What I'll do is I'll write down what my understanding is of what we're asking folks to do, and I'll do it myself for one of them. And then you guys, you can review that and tell me how far off the mark I am. Could we consider talking to the author of this report and telling them what we're trying to do and getting their input into how we're going about it?
We did try to reach out to those folks, and I'm sorry to say that our government is in a bit of turmoil right now,
Right.
and some of the people
Right.
from NIST who worked on this report are no longer there.
Okay,
Um,
understood.
It is not, and even the people from CISA are gone, like
Mm-hmm.
Ava Black, who I could have reached out to. But we'll get to that. We can certainly do that. Let's take our best shot at getting the first pass and getting some progress made, so that folks can have something to review.
Okay, so
Yeah, but I thought of that because I wanted to get somebody from there on here. Now, the folks at Sonatype did do a lot of work on this particular document. I did ask Brian Fox, and he said, sure, but get something done. We don't want to start it from scratch.
So they'll help review once we have an initial pass.
Yeah, I think that Brian will take a look at it for us,
That's good.
or somebody from his team.
all right. Yeah, I'll spend an hour or two at it, and you can feel free to just rip it apart. Tell me how far off the mark it is.
I have a suspicion you're going to be very meticulous about doing it. I'm sure it will be very good.
Okay.
I have faith.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so the task are Kate is going to create the 12 issues and identify them as in particular, just identifying the task and not worrying about the tools. Ed is going to go through the process and document how to do it, so I can send out an email so people can follow those directions and assign themselves the issues.
Yep.
And then I will try picking one up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That would be
Yes.
great, because then we'd have the full circle so you could see how hard it was, or if it was fair to understand. And then maybe in 2 weeks from now, we'll have a process, and I'll pick another one up too, Anne Marie, so we'll have 2 done. That would give us, if you can pick one up in code and pre-build, so we can try to get this section, because we already have this one sort of done. We have this one we've worked on. This one's not really done, and this one's not. So PO and PS need work.
Can I work on one of these? It's okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I will let I'll let Anne pick one first. I'll pick the other one.
Okay, so what's going to happen is she's going to, as soon as Kate creates those issues, go assign yourself the ones you want.
Yeah, I think I'll take PO because that one's a little weird.
I'll take PS then.
Yeah. PO is
So
interesting because you can get yourself twisted around whether it's saying, use a tool to do a thing or have a process to use a tool to do a thing.
I know. Believe me, when I first started reading this, I was like, okay, I don't understand this. And I thought, I wish I had like a book club to read through this. And that's when I started getting the ideas. I want other people to talk to about it.
Yeah.
It's
So
hard.
I'll try the weird one, see how it goes.
Okay. And I think Anne Marie, you probably have the most right now, the most relevant experience because you're working on this on it so fresh. if you can do PO, the hard ones, that would be great. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. It should be
All right. All right, thank you all. We'll get this done. Let's just worry about content, and then let's revisit the tables, because I think once we get the content in, putting it up, you know, it's a mindless exercise, but I think that we can get it done, and you know, then give it the circles and the scoring. So I don't want to throw that away. I just don't think we should worry about it right now.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks very much. Chat to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.